So you clicked on the right video. There is a prophet who, after the passing of a child, wants to promise people resurrection and whatever Jesus is getting himself up to. We're going to read the particular message that he posted on his Twitter account, and also I'm going to read the 2 verses that he posts out there for the world to see, trying to make it look very much Christian. And I'm going to read my 2 verses in rebuttal to what he has posted out. Now, for those people that are out there looking at this and thinking, ooh, this is Christians, this is how Christians are, this is why channels like this exist. We call it the Rich Reality Show for a reason. It's because some people really need a reality check. That's what we're going to be talking about on this particular video. It's the Rich Reality Show. We do daily Christian commentary videos. For those people that think this is Christian, let me tell you the Christian thought around this. We call what I do Christian apologetics, because it's meant to answer to people like this. It's meant to answer to things like this, so that people can have clarity about what Christians think biblically and how to think about life as we go forward. Yesterday we made an episode where we were talking about the outlook of the whole thing. What is the thought process when a person is giving a prophecy? The wording they are using. And so his name is Prophet Christian Shola, I think that's how you say his name. He says, I am Christian Shola. He posted this on Twitter, and he says, please do not bury that boy, yet he is a destiny child. This idea of destiny child is like this idea that someone is supposed to do something, take Ifai to solution ground. I guess that's where his church is. He says before 21 hours, 7, and then he says 777 after his message. See what will happen. We'll talk about what this entire thing that he's doing here is. God of solution can never fail. I only saw the message, by the way. I'm only reading this as I am seeing it right now in front of the camera. He's claiming that they must take the child to his church ground particularly. And when they get to the church ground, there's a God there. Something's going on there. One of our live stream broadcasts very recently, Wellington came on. Wellington spoke about this idea of why is their idea of God or interaction with God is localized. But when he puts 777 inside there, bracketed, without any form of context, there isn't any context to having 777 inside his quote, inside his post. Okay? And then he says after this message, and he says 21 hours after this message, God of solution can never fail. And so this idea, this God, this performance God, this God that is made and commanded to do things can never fail. That's his God. We don't know what God that is. I don't know if you guys know Aleister Crowley. Okay? That's the first thing that comes to my mind when I see this guy. Aleister Crowley was a Satanist, and he had a thing around 777s. And so, I don't know, I'm getting the wrong kind of vibes from this message here already. From what he's saying, the 777, and the idea that there is a God of his church that's going to do something. Okay? That's his own thing. And he doesn't know, like yesterday I mentioned this thing, that they say they are prophesying, but they always seem to know the outcome. They always seem to have the outcome. And so he is sure that God is going to do it. But how do you know? Prayer is supplication, meaning you're submitting a request. No, he's sure already. His God doesn't fail. Now, the part that really caught my attention was the verses here. He quotes 2 Kings chapter number 5, verse number 10. And I think that's where a prophet spoke to one particular gentleman, go to this place and do this instruction. So he's aligning his instruction to telling them to go to his church. Okay, they're dependent on coming to his church. If you read Hebrews chapter number 1, verse 1, it's very clear all the message that you hear or get in this time period should align with the Messiah. He says in time past God spoke to us in many different ways, but now he speaks through the message of his son, the message of the Messiah, meaning there must be that message of salvation in that Christ is fitted in there. The focus is not drawn to men. The focus is not drawn to a location. Why? Even John chapter number 4 answers that idea. The woman suspects that God can be worshipped at the mountain, Mount Gerizim, she was a Samaritan woman because they had a temple over there. But she says the Jews worship in Jerusalem. Which one is it? Which one of these are right? And Jesus' answer is, neither of you are right. Because God is spirit and seeks them that worship him in truth and in spirit. So it's not localized. He's not dependent on being at his church. So why is this instruction dependent on a location? Then quotes that verse, which is in reference to the thing that I just spoke about. Then he quotes 2 Chronicles 20, verse number 20. Okay? And that is to believe the verse that says, believe his prophets, you shall prosper. Believe God, you shall prosper. Believe the prophets, what. So this is dependent on believing him about the message. Okay? So this is dependent on that. So when they go there and nothing happens, what happens? Do we then wait? What's the whole thing? The transaction here is attention. The transaction here is connection. The transaction here, the thing that's been transacted here is the attention of people is drawn to him. Now the two verses that I wanted to read here. The two verses. First verse is Ezekiel chapter number 13, right? Ezekiel 13, verse 1 and 2 over there. It says, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel. He says that they prophesy and say thou unto them, that they prophesy out of their own hearts. Hear ye the word of the Lord. So then he starts speaking a message to them, for them particularly. That's exactly what I'm saying. He speaks for his own benefit. Hosea chapter number 7, verse number 2 also. When I would have healed Israel, then the iniquity of Ephraim was discovered, and the wicked of Samaria, okay? For they committed falsehoods, and their thieves came in, and the troops robbed the spoils without. Verse number 2, and they consider not their hearts, and I remember all their wickedness. Now their own doing have beset them about. They are before my face. And so this here you see a picture where their own desire, drawing for themselves, getting the clout, getting all the attention, instead of driving into God, what ends up happening is that their wickedness is shown in the things that they do. The Bible says, mourn with those that mourn. Oh no, you are trying to do some resurrection matters. He's very sure that something will happen when they get. He says, go to my church ground. You will see what happens. He says, God, it's just them going there. Something will happen. And he says, his God never fails. But yet, if you go to his church right now, there'll be people who are crippled. There'll be people that he's still praying for. Next week Sunday, you'll be praying for people who were at your church before. Why are they were there at your church, they've been church members. Why do they still have problems? It's because you are portraying a false reality. They have brought corruption. They have brought falsehood, according to verse number 1, right there. And so I thought, since he's giving out 2 verses, let's also give 2 verses to meet up with what he is saying. You're only revealing your heart. That's what comes out from this. So those 2 verses that you're thinking, they drive people to you. So 2 Kings chapter 5 verse number 10 drives people to your church. Okay? But Hebrews 1 verse 1 drives people to Jesus. 2 Chronicles 20 verse 20, it drives people to you. Okay? John chapter number 3, it drives people to Jesus. Revelation, I stand at the door and knock. He that will open, it drives people to Jesus. looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. It drives people to Jesus. So the Bible drives people to Jesus, but you drive people to you. It shows the falsehoods that you are portraying for the rest of mankind. It's quite an interesting one that you guys are painting out. They're portraying a false reality. Okay? So if them coming with the child just to enter in your church ground was going to do something, why is it that you still have church members that are still, you are going to be praying for them this week? Think about what you are saying. And because you are portraying a picture that is not realistic to what the Bible actually talks about. But do you think they are interested in that? Personally, I don't. I personally don't. That's why channels like this exist, is to set aside so that people can have they can differentiate between that and the truth. You guys be the one that decide. Who are you following? The person who's drawing you to himself, to his own church, not to God? You decide.